Hello there, I'm Miranda and this is Take a Moment with NCH&C, the show where we talk to you and your colleagues about experiences that affect you. Listen on your drive between patients or in your downtime, whenever you get the chance to take a moment.
In this episode, I talk to Service Improvement Manager Clemence Engamba about juggling family life with a career and the difference flexible working opportunities have made to working parents' lives.
I am a Service Improvement Manager. I've been with NCH&C for the past 2 years. I have 3 boys, one going into his teenage years, he's 14. I have a nearly 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. So that's 3 children. And I have a husband who works all the time. And we manage our children between us.
Wow, 3 boys. Okay, yeah. That's a busy household then, because I've got 2 boys, so adding one in, I can't imagine. How do you manage the chaos that is having 3 boys at home?
Obviously, my day starts a lot earlier than my working day, so I'm usually up between 6:30 and 7. That is, if my children let me sleep for that long. And then I prepare my son for school. So the little ones, the older ones, they're quite good at getting themselves ready. And 3 times a week, I am on school drop-off duty. So I drop them off at school. I drive to school, which is about 20 minutes away. Until recently, I used to do 3 schools drop off. So that was a nightmare, a nightmare to manage in the morning between the chaos of getting everybody out of the door on time and having to dread the traffic on the road. It was manic, stressful. And before I got into work, I always felt like I had a full day already. So get into work and start dealing with my day. Finish at 5:30, and then pick up my children from after school club. And let me tell you, they were almost always the last ones at after school club, and that was tough.
So you put your kids into the after school club. So was that an easy decision for you? Does anybody ever sort of pass any comment about that?
I didn't struggle with the decision because it was just what I had to do. I don't have any family around to help me out with my children. So that sort of paid care was on always the direction of travel if I had to be at work. Whether people have often made comments to me, not really. I think it was probably me looking at other people and seeing them being able to pick up their children at 3:30, being able to have conversation with other parents and finding out about what's happening at school and what's happening in their children's life is the bit that I missed and that I felt guilty about, and not necessarily any external involvement in what I did.
So it's more the mum guilt, that feeling of I should be
Yeah.
doing something different.
Talking about my little one and the mom guilt and the fact that you don't always know if what you're doing is the right thing. The little one, we live quite close to the school, but he was never allowed to go to school on a scooter because we didn't just have the time, and he really, really wanted to do so. But I just had to explain that I can't take you to school on a scooter. Sorry, we have to drive because we have to drop off your brothers that, 10, 15 minutes away by cars. It's those sort of little things it really makes you feel a bit different to the parents who have the opportunity to do so and spend that time with their child on the way to school. But we did have nice conversations driving around.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think it's what you make of it. Like my littlest is 2 and he goes to nursery. He goes 4 days because I work 4 days a week. I got judged quite heavily from another parent once who said, 4 days, you put him in 4 days, really? And I
Yeah.
thought, well, yeah, I do, yeah. And actually, he's thriving. He's a really sociable little boy. He's really comfortable. All of his learning and development are really coming along. And I find like sometimes on the Friday when it's just me and him, I don't do half as much as I think they probably do at nursery with him. So I think it's a real benefit, but there is that perceived stigma perhaps of putting your kids into nursery full time potential or even part time. Some people really frown upon it.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I did take time off work because it was really difficult to manage children and work. And it wasn't just for me. I did it for a couple of years and I thought, I can't go on like this. It's not good for me. I know that I like to spend a lot of time with them, but to be fair, how much time do I spend with them when they're at school? Staying at home is not just for everybody. I suppose I think it's about what works best for you and your family rather than what is perceived by others. I think thinking about how others might feel about the choices that I make for my family shouldn't really have any sort of influence or impact. I understand that the society is made up in a certain way, and where moms used to be, they're at home moms looking after the children. And it's not to say that we need to give up on our own dreams to care for the family or fit within the mold that the society is putting us into.
How have you been impacted by the changes in flexible working since COVID? The fact that we are now able to work from home, and so you could do the school run, and rather than battle the traffic like you used to have to do, you can just come home again and get settled and get started. How has it changed your daily life?
Oh, it has definitely made my life a lot easier. Like you said, we've talked about my working day before and now. Some of the things do remain. I still do the school drop off. I still have to get them ready in the morning. But the difference is I feel like the society is much more accepting of working parents or working mothers. I feel like before people used to know that you are a mother, but your children were at home or at school. But now there's that crossover between home and work, which makes it easier for you to say, for example, I'm finishing today at 3:30 because I have to go and do school pickup, and it's accepted. I'm sure it would have been in the past because we had those flexible working policy in place already. But it's just that you personally, I feel more validated and confident that this is not going to be frowned upon. This is the new normal for everybody almost across the world, not speaking to for those who can't really work from home, but having that flexibility has just helped with managing internal fight that you always have between this is home and this is work, and those two don't never ever cross. But now they do cross, and they cross all the time, and it's okay, and it's actually very good like that. It's nothing to stop mothers from going and having amazing career even when they have children. And that's not a message that I felt like we heard before the pandemic. I think it felt like if you were a mother, then you were stopped in your trajectory because you had children. You couldn't really possibly do everything that well. And perhaps it wasn't just the society telling you that. You might have felt that internally, but now it's a shift, isn't it? It's a cultural change that is amazing and great for mothers. And I'm sure the society as a whole will benefit because how many women do we have at home looking after children will very much like to come back to the workplace, and their skills, they have ambition for themselves, they want to do it, but materially they can't, they couldn't until now. Now it's much more accepted. If you said, I'm happy to apply for this job, but I'll do it remotely, then that conversation can happen.
It's the right to request from the moment that you start the job that
Yes.
potentially you're going to do it in a slightly different way. And it's less now about, well, you can't do it because you don't fit the mold. It's more, well, let's mold the job to you because you are the right person to do it. Almost 4 in 10 employed mothers were previously not requesting some type of flexible working because they often just assumed it would be turned down. Whereas now it's exactly as you say, it's that innate knowledge that it won't be. Like you said, changing culture, it just really feels now that we will be listened to and we will be heard. And that's really different. I think a lot of people also feared asking for flexibility because they thought it might damage their careers in terms of progression.
Now what we understand with the modern days of how we work now, and it's not completely post-pandemic, but post-pandemic world is more about outcomes rather than how many hours do you spend at work. It's how competent are you to do that job. Yeah, I totally agree with you that now perhaps self-motivation thing for women, knowing that they won't be perceived in a negative way if they ask for more. They will be judged on outcomes rather than times. People had to show commitment by being present and by being seen at work, but it's not so much the case now. I think People can work very well remotely. They can work very well when they are seen in person. I'm hoping that there will be a lot more women will feel validated in doing more on, being ambitious and going for more senior roles. That opportunity is out there available for mothers.
We've got the technology to be able to do it. We've got our laptops. We can essentially work from anywhere. So, like you say, it's on outputs. And that has been a real shift in culture over the last few years. I remember we called it going agile at my last place prior to being at NCH&C. And if you got up at 3 o'clock to leave, that, people would still say, oh, there goes the part-timer. And you
Yes.
sort of think, yeah, but I've been in the office since 7:30. Like, because I've worked my hours out to be that way. And, and actually that is just such a demoralizing thing to say to somebody, and I don't feel like we have that anymore.
I think some of those culture are, not to be disparaging, were quite negative towards people who couldn't work full time, but working part time, working full time. For me, it doesn't really make a massive difference. It is, again, it's how competent are you in doing the role that you're doing. I forgot to mention that I work 4 days a week, so I'm not exactly full time, so it's 30 hours job. But I do feel that it's best for me in terms of that balance between my work life and my family life, having that day off. I always used to feel like it was running around non-stop. It was like a never ending, race. But now, no, a lot of that stress has been taken away thanks to being able to work remotely and flexibly.
There's so many options, aren't there? Because there's things like 9-day fortnights, there's 3 days, 4 days, there's finishing early, sort of changing, starting early, different hours and everything. There's so many different options now. Did you go down to 4 days from full time? And was that an easy conversation with your line manager?
I'm so grateful that we are able to do that within the NHS, because I speak to other people in other workplaces where they don't have as much that push towards flexible working and those sort of work practices. No, it was an easy conversation. I think it was probably harder as a personal conversation. If you've worked 5 days a week, let's not discount that you're taking pay cut, but if you weigh the reward against the pay cut, then for me at that point it was just a no-brainer. So I just wanted to have a bit more time for myself to look after my own mental health, my well-being, and keep working. That's the thing. The thing is, I don't want to stop working, but I don't want work to overtake everything that I have. So it's about finding the right balance. I don't know it'd be easy for everybody to do so, but yeah, I just had to make that transition into a different way of approaching both.
But that's the beauty of what we can achieve now, is that previously you would have been working 5 days. You would have, well, you either work 5 days or you don't work at all, because nurseries are expensive. So when kids are small, it's kind of the nursery bill is basically my salary. So I
Yes.
might as well stop working. And we had that conversation in my household, and it was very much like, I don't want to stop working because I don't feel like I could be the person he needs me to be at home. I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mum, if I'm frank. I didn't want to do it. So I wanted to go to work, but I also didn't want to go to work for no reason, if that makes sense. If my pay was just going to be, into that nursery bill, then yeah, I couldn't justify that. Whereas now, being allowed to have that open conversation and say, right, how can I make this work for me? What is it that I would like? Approaching work and saying, this is what will work for me and my family financially, but
Yeah.
also, like exactly as you say, and quite rightly, for my mental health and my mental well-being, to be able to have those conversations now changes everything.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, and I'm probably on the same line. For me, working is important because it's just showing my children the values that I have, isn't it? I inherited it from my parents. They were hard workers, and I like working hard. So I think by me staying an active, proactive mom, contributing to the society in the way that I've chosen, I think it's great for them to see a mother at work, a mother doing things, and I'm able to share some of the things that I do at work, my successes. So if I done a piece of work that I'm very proud of, if I've contributed to something that I can show them, and it's material proof of how well and happy I am at work, then for me, I can, if I can pass that on to them, for me it's great. It's sharing my core values with them. when I said I had 3 children, the phrase that I've heard more often than not is, so you have your handful. No, that's not what it means. I don't, it doesn't mean that I can't do anything else. It only means that I have 3 children that I care very much about, but I also have other ambitions for myself. I don't just want to be a mother. I want to be more. I want to be, somebody who succeeds in the workplace, somebody who has a legacy for their children, and somebody who, when my children remember me, it's somebody who also managed to spend time with them, even though she did all of that. It's hard to, find the balance, but that's the way I chose to live my life, and I'm happy.
It's making those little moments count. So yes, okay, you might not be with them day in, day out, but when you are with them, and I'm the same with my kids, when I am, I try really hard to be present in that moment. So I put my phone in a drawer and I will kind of get down on the floor and play. And in my spare time, I read a lot of parenting books. I try to find the little hints and tips. Instagram's a good one as well, like following different accounts there, to be more present and to do more stuff. Like you say, we want to show them that going to work is important to us, but it's about when we are with them, making that time really rich, I think, isn't it?
Well, personally, if I have something to discuss with them, tell them about, like I said, small successes at work, then it makes our conversation much more interesting because we have something that we all bring to the table. So I tell them about my day, they tell me about theirs, and then we just, they learn so much by listening to me. And honestly, I learn an incredible amount listening to them and all the things that they've been doing. And in that way, we all maintain a little bit of our independence. I don't think that if you have children, you have to give up everything to look after them. I think you still need to look after yourself to be able to look after them properly. And being at work is part of me looking after myself.
I agree. I'm interested when you said previously about you don't have family around to look after the kids. Back in the day, families would use their next door neighbors. There would be, real sort of sense of community. But we don't have that as much now, do we? That support network where you can just call up a friend and say, "Would you mind just picking up, my son?" There is an extra layer to our mum guilt where we don't ask for help in the way that our parents perhaps did. Do you feel that?
Yeah, perhaps it's a change in how society views those things because people are so busy, aren't they? That other mom would have been at home to be able to look after someone else's child. There is also everything around safeguarding and how do you trust people to do things and how the society has changed. I don't know if it's that we are more inward looking into our families and therefore we feel like we shouldn't burden other people with our problems.
We had a situation the other day where my eldest, who's 6, he was asked after school by his friend if he wanted to go for a play date. And my first instinct was, "Oh, no, 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 you can't do that tonight because we haven't arranged it." And his mum said, "No, it's fine. I'm not working today, so he can come round." I heard myself saying, "Okay, but I'll pick him up at 4:30." So I gave the kid an hour and a half for this play date. And she was like, "He can stay for tea if he wants." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. No, honestly, it's fine." None of that was to do with safeguarding. It was all down to the fact that I didn't want to burden her with it because I
Okay.
thought, oh, this is the last thing she wants. Why are we so bad at not even accepting help, but kind of letting ourselves
Letting go.
do those things, letting go of that control? Why are we so bad at it?
I don't know, is it a control element? We want to know what our children are doing, what they're eating, if they're well looked after. I don't know. I suppose there's a bit of all of that. And again, if you know how difficult it is to look after your own child, you don't want to really want someone else to be doing that for you.
I wonder whether we, as working mothers as well, we just want to think that what we're doing is right. We want to look like we've got control of the situation.
I read an article a couple of years ago about new mothers not wanting any help. Either they don't want to burden other people or they just want that control element over their children. And the advice in the article was if you're offered help, take it. And I do say that to my friends. And it's just fostered a sort of solidarity between women that we perhaps are forgetting about. And it's very important. As you said, if you have no support network, no one else around you, friendship becomes much more important.
Given that you are the mum of 3 boys and you have a very busy household, do you have any tips for other working mums, things that people can do to make that busy working / getting the kids ready for school life a little bit more manageable?
There's one thing that I do, and that I always think about, that I read in a book a couple of years ago. Seasons are just going to pass by. So when it's really challenging, I just say to myself, this is not going to be forever. And I think I try to let go of things. I try to let go if they've forgotten their lunch on the seat at the back of my car. What I do, I'll ring school and try and arrange lunch that way rather than beating myself up for not having noticed when I should have. Yeah, it's about let go if you can. Don't take it too personally. It doesn't matter what other people say. The choices you make now for yourself or your family are actually for the best. It's what works for you, and it doesn't have to work for anyone else because each family is different. The dynamics are different. The environment is different. Even the financial situation is different. So those choices will be highly dependent on all of those put together. And there isn't one way of doing things. Yeah, you just have to do what works for you.
And yeah, like you say, be kind to yourself and just sort of preparing the night before. Do you do that? Do you prepare all their bags and everything the night before and get everything ready?
I want to say yes, but not always. There are days when I'm very organized and other days when it's chaos. But again, I take one day, each day as it comes. When I'm prepared, I do feel nice and relaxed and happy in the morning. But there's always something. Never forget a shoe or a hat or a glove or the PE kit. So I try my best. I try to be organized because planning does help to feel a bit more settled in the morning. But if I didn't do that, it won't be any different. It doesn't really matter to me.
Some people will be listening to this thinking, oh, I wish I could stay at home. I'd love to be a stay-at-home mum. And, absolutely. I think a lot of people would love that opportunity, but they have to work to pay bills. And I think there's that side of things as well that says, while work is a choice for a lot of people, it's not a choice for others. Some people have to. It isn't a choice.
Well, I want to argue that it is probably not a choice for a lot of people, given how the society is. But again, we're just quite lucky to be living in a different era where we can have a career and have children. We're not going to be confined into doing one thing.
That's the thing. It's like we said before, it's not one size fits all. It's just the fact that we've got these opportunities now that it doesn't have to be one case or the other case. You don't have to necessarily work 5 days or not work at all. It's now that there is this raft of opportunities for somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
which we're so lucky to have.
And it's great. It's great that there is that somewhere in the middle where I suspect a lot of us will fit into.
Thank you for listening to Take a Moment with NCH&C. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please visit the podcast intranet page to leave a comment and for details of our other episodes. You can also follow NCH&C on all social media channels.